Welcome back to the Double A Sports Podcast. Today we have on the show special guest TK, our hockey analyst. How's it going, TK?
Hey, what's up? It's a good day today.
Yeah. Anthony's got a couple questions for you on the Sabres. Let's hear them.
Okay, then Thomas, sorry. When will Owen Power arrive with the team?
So, Owen Power is a big guy with some big products. So I think he's going to play out the U of M season. So we might see a little glimpse of him at the end of the year when the college season ends. But it won't be till the end of the year, if even. I just think that he wants the time to develop. He said that, and make it a little bigger. And I mean, it's pretty big already. But he's got a big shot. He's a good skater for his size. He's physical, and I'm excited to see him in the blue and gold and what it looks like.
Can you talk about his World Junior and especially that game where he had the hat trick?
Yeah, he popped in the Hattie. I think it was against the Czechs, and that was like an exciting time for the Sabres' future.
That was really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of fans were salivating at the opportunity to have this guy who, like, he's got some skill, and he
is big.
He's a big dude. He's got some big stuff, and he's got some good stuff to show us. So when he comes to Buffalo, we're going to see that skating ability, that hockey IQ that we really haven't seen. Especially that extra year developing is going to be nice. I think it's the first time since Eric Johnson back in the day that a first overall pick doesn't go right to the NHL. And I think that's going to do him some wonders. Wonders indeed.
Let's talk about Devon Levi. I really like this kid from He plays at Northeastern. They're a top 20 hockey program right now, and he steals a bunch of wins. What can you tell us about him, and when will he be in the Sabres?
So that's a good point. I made him an NHL 22, and I put him at a low elite because this kid, he's got a glove and a half. His glove can catch a dime. He's got a good glove, and he's got good motion. He's not the biggest human being out there. He's no Owen Power, but he's got good upward and lateral mobility. He reminds me of a I'm trying to say his player comparison, maybe like a Pecorine.
I'm sure fans would love to see UPL and Levi in the crease pretty soon, especially because the Sabres goaltending has not been good except for UPL and a little bit of Craig Anderson.
Speaking of UPL, Arjun, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's had some pretty good games recently. TK, do you think Ukko-Pekka is here to stay?
TK, that's you.
Yeah, what's up? So Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he's strived high at almost every level he's been at. So if you remember, he was on Team Finland as an underager, and he liked to, let's say there was an electricity loss because he shut the lights off. In that Finnish team when it was in Buffalo, and he backstopped that, and that was a team that had Jokiharju as well, another Sabres legend, and then when he went to the OHL, he obviously got some big dubs there, and he won the, I think it was Outstanding Player Award, and in the AHL,
he had a rough go of it this year.
He had a rough go of it. He had a rough go at things. In the ECHL, he's and it's not, and this is a nice quote I like to say about UPL. Even though he is Finnish, he's not finished. He's just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Because he'll be here, and he looks like he's going to be the, at very least, the stopgap until Levi or Portillo comes up. But he looks like he's got some skill.
There's a bit of a concern though with the injury history. I believe he had hip surgery last year. Is that correct?
So when he was playing in the OHL, and then he played in Rochester a little bit, and in Rochester he kind of struggled, given his it's just the AHL. Sometimes the defense isn't as strong, so that might be a reason why he struggled, but we'll see. He's healthy. He's healthy right now, and that's what counts. So I like to say Veni Veni Vici. It's a Latin phrase, and it means seize the day, because that's what UPL is doing here up in the NHL.
He's stealing a lot of wins for the Sabres right now, which is something they haven't had with Tokarski, Subban, and Aaron Dell. Oh,
They
God.
really haven't had it since they had Anders Lindback back in 2015. A goalie that's able to steal a win.
Not disrespect Malcolm
I
Subban, RJ.
think
Malcolm Subban, we'll see what he does.
he had a solid night tonight. He's had a couple of solid games. They just haven't resulted in wins, many wins. But
Hey. Let's be optimistic about this. They're playing well, and they might get a little draft pick up there that's going to help out. A Shane Wright on the Buffalo Sabres would look pretty nice, I think.
we have, they let Linus Ullmark walk, which turned out to be great for this team because now they're going to have a better draft pick, and they're letting these young kids play. If
Linus Ullmark was a fool. He left Buffalo.
Okay, moving.
A fool would leave Buffalo. He could have been the starter.
Let's move on to
Now he has to battle with Jeremy Swayman for the starting role in Boston. But when he was on Buffalo, he was number one, and he would have been number one. So he's a fool, and I actually don't care that we don't have him anymore. Because you know what he did to himself? He screwed himself.
Well, the Bruins are fourth in the Atlantic, and they are on track to make the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's move on. Let's get into the new additions to the Sabres. We have Alex Tuch made his debut last night. So did Peyton Krebs, and we also had J.J. Peterka making his debut, and the GOAT, Ethan Prow. What can you say about their debuts and their potential with the Sabres?
You might not like the contrarianism in me, but I would not say that Ethan Prow is the greatest NHL player of all time. He hasn't shown me enough. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think he's better than Gretzky. I don't think he's better than Howe, because he hasn't shown me much in the AHL to be like, oh my God, this kid is good. I think that he's more of, given the COVID situation, he's kind of just a call-up, but I don't think he's a key piece of this. I don't think he's even on the untradeable list. So if someone offered me McDavid for Ethan Prow, I would do it, because I don't think he is the greatest player of all time.
Okay, let's get into Peyton Krebs. What can you tell us about him?
He's okay. I remember when this kid was drafted. He's a hard-working individual. He gets into the corners. He's not the biggest guy. I think he's 6'2", but he'll work for the puck. He's kind of like Cousins. I think that was the same draft as well. And they're very similar in the sense they're not the biggest guys. I mean, Cousins has 6'2", 6'3", but they really get into the corners and go hard.
TK, don't you think it's disrespectful of the Buffalo organization to let go of starter Hutton, the greatest goalie, arguably in franchise history?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think what they were going to do this year is kind of tank. So they didn't want to have. They wanted to let Ukko-Pekka-Luukkonen develop. They didn't want to have just winning. Because they could have signed Hutton. They could have signed Cahoon again, and then they'd probably be they'd be a lock in the playoffs. But they could be a contender, and I don't think they want that. I don't think they have the future going forward to the confidence in the future, given the roster now that they want. So they're gonna wait a few years, get a few draft picks, let some players develop, and then we get him back, and then we go.
That makes sense, Thomas, because that was controversial. Starter Hutton, that's kind of my boy right there.
Yeah.
And they just let him go. They could easily make the playoffs if they had Starter Hutton. But that's controversial.
I think Hutton's part of the puzzle. So there's a few pieces they could have had, because remember they left Jacob Josephson.
Oh right.
Go back to Sweden.
Huge penalty killer there.
Yeah, exactly. So they lost their best penalty killer, one of their best goalies, and I think they're just they just want the young guys to develop instead of just maybe making the playoffs but losing out on a good pick.
Screw Ullmark though, we don't want him.
Yeah, honestly, Ullmark probably made the dumbest decision of his life, and he's gonna regret it in Buffalo.
He lost a lot of money in that deal.
He's such an idiot. Why would you go to Boston?
Speaking about development, let's talk about Tage Thompson. This kid has improved tremendously. He's on pace for 30 goals. TK, what's your analysis of him?
I want you to close your eyes and think of 2018 summer, and you hear the news. Ryan O'Reilly was traded. And you say for who? A 26th overall pick, Tage Thompson. And you say...
Don't forget Saboka and Berglund.
Saboka and Berglund, and they pull a little Allmark, and that's the biggest mistake of their lives. But anyways, they got me off track on that a little, Arjun. So I think Berglund made a mistake, and so did Saboka. I mean, I don't think they were going to be there for the long haul.
About Tage Thompson.
Yeah, Tage Thompson. First year, I think they should have probably sent him down to Rochester the first year. He played up with Buffalo. He played He showed some flashes of brilliance, but he kind of models his game. I wish he modeled his game more off of Mika Rantanen. He's got the size, and he's got the skating, but he's more of a Jaroslav Slavkovsky kind of guy. In the sense that he relies more on skill when he doesn't, and he can use his size to a better advantage. You know what I mean?
I think that this year though he's used it a lot better on the boards.
Yeah, this year he got sent down to Rochester. He developed his body. He was comfortable with his body, and that's a tough thing for a lot of kids these days, to be comfortable with the body you're in. And he finally was up to the task, and now it looks like he's comfortable in his own skin, and he's proud of who he is.
Also, he's taking that side on the power play where Jack Eichel used to be in the corner, opposite Olofsson, and that
Don't mention his name.
and and his shot is deadly. I think he's
worse than Omar.
Yeah, don't get me started, Michael. But anyways, Thompson's got that clapper. He has an X Factor mode, and it's underrated. And his he can 1T it.
Is that comparable to Peter?
I would say it is.
Dude, that is okay.
It is. And I agree. He's got a nice shot, and he's got skill. I mean, we've seen it in the shootout. Anytime he's in the shootout, he does a little ditsy doodle and he leaves the tendy hanging. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Makes the tendy look like Swiss.
Yeah. So he shows his flashes of brilliance.
How about Dahlin? He's had an up and down season, but recently he's been coming on.
Always posts on his story about how much he thinks Dahlin is struggling this year. But I mean, the defensive side has to get better, but his offensive game has been strong. I remember sitting on the couch a few days ago, and Ruggs actually texted me and said, "Did you see that play by Dahlin?" And I said, "I did see that play by Dahlin," and that play by Dahlin was something special. And I just think that his mobility has been really, really good, and I mean mobility in the sense of his like speed, not like his botness. And I just think that he's been this developing star, this rising star, and he's on his way to becoming that pick that we salivated over. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think a lot of the hit stems from guys like Kel McCarr, who's just out of this world as a defenseman, and you've got to consider the Sabres are a developing team, really bad goalies in front of them for the most part.
Well, one thing about Kel McCarr, look who his D partner is. He's with Devon Tays, one of
Okay.
the best defensemen in the league. Dahlin is playing with, I mean, sometimes Yoki Hardy, which isn't too bad, but sometimes he's playing with someone like Robert Hagg, who sometimes struggles with like the skating aspect of the game and the decision-making aspect of the game. And
that's basically all hockey.
No knock on Robert Hagg. He's got some.
He's great at blocking shots. I think that's a huge contribution.
Oh my God! Do not get me started on shot blocking.
But the future of this defensive core for the Sabres looks pretty strong. You got Dahlin, Power. Tell us about some of the other prospects.
Oh, we have there's this young little stud from the Russian who was actually on the Russian World Junior team, and I think it's Novikov is his name, and he well, we didn't see much of him, because the World Juniors was canceled. But he looks like he's got at least he's 6'4", 207 pounds, and he's actually playing in the K, which is actually a pretty big move, given that the Russians like to keep their players in the MHL, and then let them develop, and if they do play in the KHL, they don't get much ice time. So that's a good sign that he's playing with men. And I wanted to remind you that Shipashov is playing in the KHL with him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, TK, do you think that the Sabres' young core is good enough to make the playoffs next year? Thomas.
That's an interesting question because I wouldn't say that at the current point, given the developmental mentality of the team, the developmental side, that they do have the skill to make the team, but I think that it's a good start.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think we have the talent.
Really? Okay.
Let me hear me out. Hear me out here. You've got a really good young core. I mean, you got Dylan Cousins. He's been improving. Middlestat hasn't even been playing this year. You got Tage Thompson. You got Paterko. You got Krebs. You got Quinn. There's other guys too. You got Darlene. You got Power. You got UPL. There's so much talent on this team, especially considering they're probably gonna have another high pick, and then they're gonna have a lot of money in free agency if this team really wants to make a run at it, and these guys are ready to go.
I don't know if I want the Pagulas to be spending the free agency money.
Since you don't believe this Sabres team is capable of making the playoffs next year, what are your thoughts on moving forwards for the Sabres? What should fans look for in a developmental year?
The Sabres have a lot of potential in the sense that in a few years they could be a top-notch team because they have this young core, and if they get someone like Shane Wright and someone like Shane Wright this year, and I mean this is really splooging, but Matvei Mishkov next year, that's going to change the whole dimensions of the team. Because then you have two really good players, two top elite franchise players on the same team. So if we even got one of those, or Connor Bedard, they're going to be set. So I think they're in a good spot. They got a young core, and I just think it's this season is a learning experience.
Especially the goaltending is in a great spot developmentally.
The goaltending is in it. The goaltending developmentally, you have Takarsky doesn't really matter. Where he's not going to be a long-term fix. He's up there in age, but someone like Luukkonen, obviously, Levi, Portillo, he's playing lights out. Subban's always.
He has the potential if he shows up this year to stay next year as a backup.
Hey! Let me remind you, Malcolm Subban was a first-round pick by the Bruins.
Yeah.
So the Bruins saw Doug Sweeney saw something in him, saw a little light, and he saw greatness in him. So I think that he could develop into something if he reaches the potential. And especially, we know goalies, they just happen like someone like Devin Dubnyk a few years ago. He was bad, and he just became good.
Yeah.
And it happened a few years, and then he just got, he just struggled a little again. So goalies are just so random. Someone like Mikko Koskinen, he had a good year, got signed to a big contract, played bad, and now he's playing good again.
How about Cam Talbot?
Yeah, that's a good example too. I mean, the Wild are first in the league or top in the league
With no stars besides Kaprizov.
And yeah. I mean,
Felino, our boy, yeah.
Yeah. I think they're in a good place. So, thanks for having me on the show, and I obviously tune into you and Anthony's podcast very often, and I'll give it shout-outs, and you guys are doing wonders on the sports world.
Well, thanks for being on the show. We'd love to have you back again.
Yeah, I would love to be back.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to AA Sports Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe.